Hello YouTube friends and welcome to my channel. Today is a video full of DIY custom made candles that make perfect gifts for Christmas. They're all easy to create and probably a lot of the stuff you already have at home that you can gather together and make some for yourself. Got lots of content here, so we're going to get right at it. The first candle we're going to make is with one of these little mason jars. I always save these and the lids, and they make fantastic DIY candles that you can make yourself. I picked up a bunch of these taper candles at the Value Village. They were $2.99. It was a full box of the 10-inch taper candles. I'm going to melt these down and make them into new candles. When I'm melting wax to make my own candles, I just like to use a tin can, and I've broken down these candles into more manageable size, put them in the tin can, and you can reuse this wick also when we're making our new candle. So we're going to melt this down on our stovetop. I just put my tin can in a saucepan, nothing in it, and I just put the setting on my stove at about 3 or 4, just a really slow heat. And as you can see, it just starts to melt the candles really slowly. You don't want to put it on too high because you don't want it to scorch it, and just let them melt away. I like to use a tin can when I'm melting wax. That way, when I'm finished with it, I can just throw it out and start with a new one when I do another project, and I'm not wrecking any of my saucepans. I've got the candle wax all melted, and I'm just keeping it on a hot plate. Be very, very careful. Obviously, it's hot wax. We don't want anyone to get burnt. I've got my little container, and I've saved all the little wicks that I melted out of the candle because you can use these on other candles. Just pick one that's going to kind of fit into your jar. I'm going to use this longer one, and you're going to get a skewer, and I just like to wrap the candle wax around it until it's the length that I want. Straighten it right out, and then set it in your jar right in the center, and then you can pour your wax around it and you have a wick. Now, these candles that I melted down didn't have any scent, and I want to make them kind of smell pretty, so I've just got some essential oil. I think this is eucalyptus. I'm just going to put, for this size, probably 5 to 7 drops. And then I'm going to take a skewer and just stir it right in really well. Already smells so good. And then you're just going to very carefully pour it into your jar. Now this isn't too hot anymore. It's kind of cooled down a little bit so I can pick the tin up. I've got some parchment paper so I'm not wrecking my table. And you're just going to really slowly just pour it into that little mason jar. Fill it up right to where you want it. Make sure your wick is centered. Set it aside, and you have a perfect candle that makes an amazing gift. My little mason jar candle is all set. I'm going to cut the wick. And I've got some vintage wrapping paper. I'm going to cut out a portion of it. I like this little flower here. I'm just going to trace it around with a little pen. Cut out the circle. And then I'm just going to add it to the top of the lid. I'm going to glue it with my glue stick. And it just kind of takes that little mason jar to the next cuteness level. Got the circle cut out. I'm just going to use some of my glue stick and stick that vintage piece of wrapping paper on the top of that lid. And then I'm going to put the ring on it. And that looks so pretty. And then you have a nice lid for your top of your candle. When you've finished up those little jars of jam and jelly, set them aside, save some wax, and make little candles. Next candle I'm going to make, I picked up this little tin at the thrift store. It was full of little coasters. I'm going to take the coasters out, use it for another project, and I paid $1.49, and I think they were 75% off, so it was a really good deal. But I want to turn it into a candle. I want to make the candle in this green. I had this old candle, the jar was really yucky, it was almost burnt out. I'm going to chunk up the wax that's in here, but I don't have enough to fill the container. So I'm also going to melt down some of these taper candles that I've had that I've been burning, but I can use up. And the trick to make it even more green is to melt a little bit of crayon in it. I've got some green crayon. I'm going to put that in there to melt it all up, and it's going to make a beautiful brand new candle. I'm going to use a new tin can. I'm going to break up a few pieces of that crayon. I've taken the paper off. Actually, I'm probably going to use the whole crayon. Put it in the tin can, and then I'm just going to take my scissors and chunk up all the wax that's in this one that was really yucky and add it into the tin can. Just dump it all in there. Don't worry about the wick that's in there. We can always fish that out afterwards, after it's all melted. I never throw out any of my little bits and pieces of wax. I always save them for projects exactly like this. And I won't throw out this glass jar either. I'll clean it all up, and I might make it into a candle later on. And that's probably still not quite enough wax to fill it up. So I'm going to break up some of these and melt them down too, and we should have enough to fill up our little container. I actually switched it all to a bigger tin can because it couldn't hold enough to fill up this candle holder. So we're going to go down to the stove and we're going to start melting this, and we'll see that lovely green color all come together. I've got it all set up on the stove on medium heat. I'm just going to let it just kind of heat away and melt all of that wax. This is melting really nicely, and it's a fantastic green color just with that little bit of that green crayon. Oh, my green wax is all melted. I've just got a little skewer. I saved the wick from one of the white pillar candles or the tapered candles. And again, I'm just going to wrap it around until it's the length that I want, that'll touch the bottom. If you have wicks, you can use your wicks that you already bought. I just don't like to waste anything. So I try to use up as much that I can from every project that I'm doing. And I'm just going to center it right in the center. That looks pretty good. I've got some parchment paper down. My wick is centered right in the middle of that little tin container, and we're ready to pour the wax in. It's still a little bit hot, so I'm going to use my tea towel and be really careful when I'm pouring it in. Now, I didn't add any scent in this one because the green candle that I used that was almost gone had a really strong pine smell, and as I was melting it, I could still really smell it. So I just want to leave it as that scent. And I'm just going to slowly pour in that green wax. And it's such a beautiful color. Just adding a little bit of that green crayon was a perfect touch. And the perfect amount of wax too. And that's all there is to that. I'm going to set it aside and let it harden up really well. This one's all finished. I'm just going to cut the wick, put the lid on, and it's ready to give as a gift. Next candle that I'm going to make that make fantastic gifts. I always find these wooden bowls at the thrift store, always pick them up. I like to paint them, and I can put transfers on the inside, or I like to make them into candles. I had some of these wooden wicks that I had purchased quite a while ago, a whole pack of them, and I'm going to use that in the middle of this candle. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom of it just to hold it in place right in the center, and then we're going to get our wax ready. Okay, I have this one all ready. I'm going to just leave it the white color. I think that's going to look really nice with the wooden bowl. So I'm going to go down and heat it up. I've got it on medium heat and just letting that wax melt down slowly. Now I've decided I want the wax to have a really white color. And when I melted it, it kind of went a clear. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of the white crayon just to give it a little bit more of a white color. It's still really hot, so it'll melt in there if I stir it with my little stir stick for a few minutes. I don't need to add very much, just a little. And I think it'll just make it a little bit of a brighter white. That's probably enough. And then I'm just going to take my skewer and just stir it and make sure that that crayon just melts really well. The white crayon has completely melted, and my candles didn't have any scent, so I'm going to add some essential oil, lavender. I'm going to add probably about 5 drops. Stir it really well so it incorporates, and then we're ready to put it into the wooden bowl. I'm just going to really carefully, the tin can is a little bit warm, just going to pour it really slowly into that wooden bowl and fill it up to the level that I think it's going to look really nice. Now, if you have bigger bowls or bigger containers, you can use more than 1 wick. This is a pretty small container or small bowl, so the 1 wick I think will be perfect. All finished. I'm going to let it sit aside for a little bit, and then once it starts to solid up a little bit, I have a few little sprigs of cedar that I want to add into it, and I think that'll look really nice and really Christmassy. So, but I'm going to let it set up a little bit. Now I got busy melting some other wax, and this set up a little bit too much for me. So I've set these boughs in here, and I'm just going to take my heat gun and just kind of heat it up a little bit and melt it into that wax. I had too many things on the go and I was multitasking, but this works perfect. I'm just going to melt it just into that top layer of wax, and it just adds a really nice kind of effect and touch to that wooden bowl. And now that I've got that melted a little bit, it's worked perfect. I can just take my skewer and just kind of press it down right where I want it. I thought I'd messed it up, but actually I saved it with the heat gun. It worked perfect. And we're just going to set that aside and let it finish setting up. My wooden bowl candle is completely set. I'm going to just cut that wick. And it's all set. So start looking for those wooden bowls to make into candles. I just love the boho kind of natural feel that this has. I might be keeping this one for myself. Okay, I had some red and green and white wax left over. Not very much, but enough to make this into a candle. This is just a little votive holder that I picked up at the dollar store. I've had it for forever, and I thought it would look really nice. I'm gonna make 3 different colors. I'm gonna layer this like a Christmas candy, and I'm gonna save the wick I've got from one of the other candles that I melted. I'm gonna stick it in this little base that I saved. Waste not, want not. I don't throw anything out. Put a little bit of glue on the bottom, put it in the bottom of the votive holder, and you can use any type of glue, just something that's going to hold it in its place. And that's all set. I'm going to let that harden up a little bit, and then I'm going to pour that little bit of wax in to make a really fancy candle. I've got that little bit of green wax melted that I had left over, and I'm just going to pour it really carefully into the bottom. I didn't have a whole lot. Make sure that I have my wick standing right up straight. Perfect. And we're going to let that harden, and then I'm going to put the next colored wax in. That first layer of green has set up really nice, and now I'm going to put a layer of red on. And I'm not adding any scent because I have the scent left over from when I did my other candles. I'm just going to very carefully just pour all that I have on the top of that. we're gonna let that set, and then I'm gonna finish it off with a little bit of white. The red has set up nicely, and now I'm gonna finish it off with a little bit of white. Perfect amount. I've used up all of my scrap wax that I had left over from my other projects. And I have a candy cane candle. I have a little bit of candy cane that I kind of crushed up, and I'm just gonna sprinkle a few on the top just to make it look nice and pretty and festive. And we're just gonna set it aside and let it get solid. Okay, how fantastic is this? 3 colors of candle, and then the candy cane sprinkled on the top. This was so easy to do, and I just used it with all the leftover wax that I had from the other candles that I made. The next candle I'm going to show you is a pillar candle from the dollar store. I picked this up at Dollarama for $3.50, and I also picked up this tissue paper at Dollarama also. I'm going to do a little bit of a different trick on this though. We're going to put the tissue paper on the candle, but I want to customize it first. First thing I want to do is I want to cut a piece of the tissue paper the same size as a sheet of paper. So I'm just going to size it up here and then cut it out the same size. And then I've got my crafter's tape and just a plain piece of computer paper. I'm just going to put some of the crafter's tape in each corner, and then we're going to put the tissue paper on that piece of paper because it's going to act as a carrier to go through our printer. Just going to turn it upside down and then press it right into that tissue paper. I'm going to take this down to my printer, and I'm going to print out a really nice Christmassy graphic on this. And then we're going to apply it onto the candle. I've printed this off on my LaserJet printer, and you can use an inkjet printer also. And now what I want to do is I want to cut it to the exact size of the candle. And I'm going to place it, now I've placed it in my graphic right in the middle, so you have tissue paper to wrap around all of your candle, but we want to cut it down to size. So I'm going to measure the candle. We're millimeters here in Canada, so it's 16. So I want to cut. So I have 16 millimeters in my middle panel. To apply the tissue paper to the candle, you're going to need some wax paper, or you can also use parchment paper. I prefer the wax paper because it's got the waxy side to it. And you want quite a big sheet. Now you want to place your tissue paper exactly where you want it. And then you're going to lay it on the wax paper, and you want to have the waxy part of the paper on the tissue paper. You're going to wrap it really tight. You want to keep that tissue paper right in place. I like to scrunch this up. Hold it really, really tight. Now we're going to use our hair dryer, and it can get really warm. So I like to use a tea towel to hang on to it. And then you're just going to start your hair dryer on a really high heat. And all finished. And that is such an easy DIY and so affordable, and you can customize it with any quote that you want, and there's so many different tissue papers that you can choose from at the dollar store. Tissue paper and then printed on my LaserJet printer, and it created this beautiful candle. This is a perfect gift to give somebody that maybe has lost someone throughout the year, and it's a nice thoughtful gift. The next project, I am going to do a photo on a pillar candle. Same candle that I bought at the Dollarama. And I'm going to cut this photo down to size to fit the pillar candle. This is my brother's family, and shh, don't tell them because I'm going to make this for them for Christmas. I've got it all cut to size, and it wraps right around the whole candle. Now, you don't have to print off a big photo like this. You can just do a small photo and put it in the center. I just kind of like the way that it looked wrapped all the way around. Now, when you're doing this technique, this paper is still it's kind of thick and it won't lay very well into the candle. So I like to do another technique before we put this on the candle. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to grab some packing tape and we're going to remove some of that bulk off the back of this paper. What you're going to need is some packing tape and just an old credit card or a plastic card. And you're just going to start at one end and just press that packing tape right into that paper. And this is going to turn regular computer paper into a thinner paper, like a tissue paper or like a napkin, and make it a lot easy to apply to the candle. This also works really well for decoupaging if you want a thinner paper to decoupage with. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this tape over the whole photo. Okay, I've got all the tape down, and then we're just going to take our card and just really hard push right into that paper. Adhere that tape really well to it. And then once you've done that, you're going to start on the end of the last piece of tape that you put down. You want to be really careful. We don't want to tear this photo after we've already printed it. So you're just going to really take your time, holding down here as you pull away, and you can see all of that paper that's being taken away from the back of that photo, and it'll make it a lot easier to work with. See all that paper that's being removed? And then you're just going to go to the next strip. Again, really take your time, be really careful. We don't want to rip that photo. And just pull that tape away. And then the next one. This one's gonna be sticky. There we go. And just very carefully, just pull that away. And one more. We don't want to rip the last one. We're going to be really careful, holding down the edges as we pull. And now you've taken a regular piece of computer paper and made it nice and thin to work with. Now, it's still not quite thin enough for how I like it, so I'm going to go over it once more. I've got the paper nice and thin now, easy to work with. We're going to do the same process that I did with the snowflake candle. We're going to place it on the pillar candle, get it so it's nice and even, exactly where you want it. Then we're going to take our wax paper, and we want the wax paper, the waxy side to the inside against the photo. We're going to scrunch it right up tight, and then get the tea towel so we don't burn our hands, and work away on it with the hairdryer. If you have a special picture that you want to print out on regular computer paper, this is the technique to try it and put it on a candle. It works fantastic. And I just love this picture of my brother and his wife and all their kids. I have one more pillar candle that I'm going to show you how I'm going to make. Now, this is a napkin. It's one sheet of a napkin, and I've taken a little bit of tape in each corner and put it on a piece of computer paper. I'm going to put this through my laser jet printer and print on the napkin. I've done all kinds of tutorials on how to custom make your own napkins. I'll put a link down below in the description, and you can check that out if you want to make some for yourself. I'm going to go downstairs, put this through my laser jet printer, and then we'll come back up and we're going to put this on the candle. I've printed my graphic off on the napkin, and now I'm just going to cut it off that piece of computer paper, leaving a little bit around the edge. And you're left with a custom napkin that you can put on the candle the exact same way that we did the others with the hairdryer. This is also a fantastic technique to decoupage with. So we're going to get some wax paper and put it on the candle. I love these techniques because you can customize so much. You can do a last name, you can do photos, you can do quotes, and anybody that receives a gift like that would just love it. So we're going to put the wax paper again right up tight against that graphic, scrunch it up. We're going to get that tea towel to hang onto it, and we're going to get heating that up with the hairdryer. Once you've got that all done, you just peel off the wax paper. And amazing. I love it. Now, you have to remember, if you're using a candle that's a different color and not white, if you're using a white napkin, you're going to see the whole outline of that napkin. So the white napkin on the white candle works the best. I love custom making all of my own napkins when I can't find one in the theme that I'm looking for. And this is so easy. Print it on a napkin with a laser jet printer, or you can also use your inkjet to make custom candles. This next candle DIY is so simple. All you need is some Mod Podge mat, some glitter, any colors. I'm going to use these 3 colors together, a little votive, and this actually is an old candle holder that I had that I'm just going to upcycle. And we're just going to make this look like icicles. And you're just going to just kind of drip the Mod Podge all along the edge of your container. Just kind of goop it on, random lengths. A little bit thicker in some places, thinner in others. And we want it to look like little icicles. And you can use your Mod Podge mat, or you can use a gloss, whatever you have on hand. You can use your homemade Mod Podge. This will work on any of that. And you just want to make sure that you got it covered all around the rim, right to the edge. Now I want to mix the 3 glitters together, so I'm going to just put a bunch in this little plastic container. Equal amounts of each color, and then we're going to kind of stir it up a little bit. And we don't want that Mod Podge to dry. We want it to stay wet so the glitter will stick to it. I'm just going to stir it all together. Such a pretty color. Use your little plate, and then you're just going to just put that glitter all over that Mod Podge. And it's going to look like beautiful little icicles. And of course, I'm going to have glitter everywhere too while I'm doing this. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to have a little bit of glitter along the top edge too. So now that I have it all along the sides, I'm going to put some Mod Podge right along that rim, all the way around. And then I'm going to pick up from the bottom, and I'm just going to press that top of that glass into this glitter that's on the plate. Perfect. I'm going to set this aside and let it dry really well. I think this little icicle candle turned out adorable. This would be a great DIY to do with the kids. And I just added a little votive on the inside. I sprinkled a little bit of the glitter on it too to finish it off. And I love it. Next project, an empty candle that I have burned and used up. I cleaned it all up really well. And a while back, I came across some really vintage wrapping paper, Christmas wrapping paper. I love this one, and I'm going to decoupage it on the outside of this and then make a new candle for the inside. I'm going to use my Mod Podge mat and just put a liberal amount at the beginning. Attach the paper. I like to work in sections. I don't like to do it all at once. It's easier to kind of work with. And then I like to lift it up and then keep adding the Mod Podge as I go around the container. I do have a full tutorial of beginner decoupage that would help you out if you've not decoupaged before, with the steps to make it a little bit easier for you. I'm just going to work away at this. I've added a wooden wick into the middle of this, just put a little bit of glue on the bottom just to hold it in place. And I've melted up some wax and put a little bit of a green tinge to it. I'm gonna leave this one unscented and just gonna pour that wax in there. My wick is kind of moving around a little bit, but that's okay. I can set it over where it needs to be now. And I'm just gonna set that aside and let it set up really well. This is a great way to upcycle an old candle holder that you've already used and put a brand new candle into it. A little bit of decoupaged wrapping paper. It makes a perfect gift. And there you have all kinds of DIY custom made candles. These are all so easy to create with simple ingredients and stuff that you probably already have in your home. I'd love to know down in the comments which one's your favorite. And if you like this video, I'm sure you'll really like the next one. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.